And Senator Roy Blunt is with us. And Senator, say good morning to Chuck Wooten is here with me.
Hi, Senator. How are you?
Hey, Chuck. How you doing, buddy?
I'll be fine.
And also Joy Robertson.
Good morning.
But you've got the first team in there today.
We got, I mean, when everybody found out that Senator Blunt was going to be on with us, we brought out the top team.
Exactly. I believe it.
What's going on?
Senator, I know you don't have a lot of time this morning. I appreciate you giving us a few minutes here, but I guess the big thing, and everywhere, everybody's talking about, there's a lot of things in Washington to talk about, but still job creation is number one, I assume. And what's the things look like from your perspective?
Well, it should be number one, and it should be private sector job creation number one. You know, government. We need a certain amount of government jobs, and I have one, and I'm glad to have it, and I'm glad to get to do the job I get to do for Missourians right now. But government jobs don't pay the bill; they are the bill. We've got to have private sector job creation. It needs to be the focus in the country today. And has needed to be the focus for the last 4 years, and clearly is just not. I mean, I think the president is eager to talk about anything but the economy, and based on where the economy is, I guess I can't blame him for that politically, but we've got to be focused on the things it takes to encourage people to create jobs. You know, government can't create very many private sector jobs. Occasionally, a highway project that creates private sector jobs. But what government can do is work for good energy policies and good regulatory policies and good tax policies and good health care policies that encourage people to make that gamble to create a job for somebody else. Because every time you do that, a lot of things can go wrong, and if the government ups the ante of what can go wrong, people just step back and don't take the risk that they otherwise might be willing to take. So, you know, government needs to encourage risk, and risk creates opportunity for others, and it seems to me that we're losing sight of that, and we've got to get back to that very important principle.
I know you've been speaking around the country quite a bit here lately. I've seen on newscasts you've been speaking here or there. What's the prime thing that you've been speaking on? Is it about jobs, that type thing, or what else?
You know, I've been talking about exactly what you and I just talked about, that, and I spoke at the Republican convention in Virginia on Saturday. I spoke at an event at our convention 2 or 3 weeks ago. But the sense of how important these things are: good energy policy, good health care policy, good tax policy. And, you know, tax policy shouldn't be focused on how you redistribute wealth. It should be focused on how you fund the government and how you do that in the way that's the least disruptive to encouraging the economy for people to do things. And then the other thing I've been talking about is I do think we're at a generational moment here where we're going to decide this year, as we did in 1980 and about every 25 or 30 years we do this through the history of our country, we're going to make a big decision, I'm convinced, about who we're going to be for a long time. And surely we don't want to be Europe. The headlines this morning are about Spain. Yesterday they were about Greece. Next week they may be about Ireland or Italy or Portugal or even Great Britain. And surely we don't want to go down that path, because we know what happens when you let your government get bigger than your economy can support.
And that's one thing, so-called Obamacare, or the insurance care we're talking about, that's one of the things that makes us sound so socialistic, or maybe going down the path of Europe. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I think any time the government tries to manage big parts of the economy, the healthcare is 16% of our economy, you're worse off than if the government did try to do what the government could do to encourage an economy where competition and choice are available to people. You know, we need to do that, and nobody is happy with the current healthcare system that we have today, but there are lots of better options, I'm convinced, than the options in the Affordable Health Care Act. Now, we'll see what the court says about that, maybe as early as next Monday, maybe even still this week. But this month, the court will decide on the question of whether it's constitutional or not. But there are really three questions to ask. One is it constitutional? Two is it a good idea? And three is, can we afford it?
Right.
And if the answer to any of those is no, we shouldn't do it. I happen to think the answer to all three of them is no. But if the answer to any of them is no, is it a good idea? Even if it's a good idea and we can't afford it, we shouldn't do it.
Right.
And I think the answer is no across the board. We'll see what the court says. But the American people don't want, surely, the system to work exactly like it's working now. So no matter what the court says, we need to find ways that give people more access to the insurance marketplace and more access to health care, but with decisions driven by them and their doctor, not by some government official somewhere.
Senator, let me ask you a question about the executive orders.
Sure, Chuck.
Yes. This president seems to, every time he doesn't get his way, he does an executive order on it. Are these legal? Are all these things he's doing, like the latest immigration?
You're talking about immigration, right?
Yeah, that's his latest one. Is that legal?
Well, some of them are legal. I think the bigger question, which is I think what you're getting at, Chuck, is the idea that if the government doesn't work the way you think it should work, you just go ahead and ignore the Constitution and do what you want to do. I mean,
that's my worry.
There's a law called the Defense of Marriage Act. The president decided he didn't like it, so he just says we're not going to enforce it. Mm-hmm. On the immigration laws, the president decides these laws that say people are illegally in the country should be sent out of the country. That we don't like that, so we're not going to enforce it. I don't believe a president's ever successfully been able to make the case to the American people that you can just ignore the law. The president's the president. He has lots of potential to propose and fight for changes in the law.
Right.
But just to decide that you're not going to enforce the law, I think is a very, very bad thing for any president to do.
Okay, good point there. It just blew my mind, of some of these executive orders he's doing. And I don't know.
Well, that's right. And, he recently appointed some people in what's called a recess appointment by deciding that the Senate wasn't in session, even though the Senate said the Senate was in session.
Yeah.
When the president can decide whether the Congress is in session or not, and when the president can decide which laws that have been passed and are the laws of the land, the president's going to enforce, I think the American people should be concerned about that, and my guess is they are. And it's part of the bigger debate going on. But back to Dan's first question, I think most people, in spite of their concern about all these things, their biggest concern is what do we do to get people back to work?
Missouri, right now, we have, I think, about a point less than what the rest of the nation has. And Arkansas, even has a little less than that. So right in this part of the country, we're not doing bad on jobs. It's not good. But, it's better than what you see nationwide.
I believe that's right. I've seen some troubling job creation numbers from Missouri lately, but the farm economy is strong, the ag economy is strong. We have a very diverse economy in our state, and that's a good thing. Lots of things have to go bad for us to be impacted by the economy, and we could be a great part of the energy economy, and hopefully we'll become part of that. But we need to use more American energy, both our energy and Canadian energy. That's the shortest path to more American jobs is more American energy, not just the jobs to create the energy, but the jobs that occur when you have a long-term guaranteed source of low utility rates because you figured out how to use coal and natural gas, both of which we now believe we have more of than anybody in the world, more recoverable natural gas than anybody in the world, which we didn't know until the last 10 years. We've known for a long time we have more coal than anybody in the world. We need to figure out how to use those resources to allow us to be more competitive, and particularly in ways that allow us to make things again. If you can distribute things economically and you can pay the utility bill that it costs to make things, you can be part of an important manufacturing economy.
But one thing, the president, when he made the statement that the private sector is fine, he was a little off the mark there, wouldn't you think?
Well,
I would think that's surely a big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I said it was ridiculous when he said it. That was my public reaction. Somebody else's was, what planet is he on? The idea that the private sector's fine, and implicit in that discussion was we just need more government jobs, just doesn't make sense to anybody that understands what needs to happen in the country. It's what Greece might think or Spain might think, but surely it's not going to be what we think. We have to have private sector job creation, and clearly the private sector is not fine. In fact, if the workforce was defined to have as many people in it as it had the day the president became president, unemployment would be 11.1%. But so many people in the last years have given up on the economy that the defined workforce is the smallest it's been since Reagan was president, even though we have a much larger working age population than we had when Reagan was president.
Well, Senator, I know you have limited time, but one more quick question. The Health Care Act, or the law, or sometimes referred to as Obamacare, the Supreme Court has that right now, looking at the legality of it. Have any predictions on how that'll turn out?
I really don't. I mean, there's about 3 different options, and one is they could say, hey, it's fine, it's constitutional. Now, if they say it's constitutional, that doesn't mean it's fine. Maybe I said that wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just as opposed to it if they decide it's constitutional as I am if they decide it's unconstitutional. I don't want to do unconstitutional things, but you can do lots of constitutional things that are just a bad idea. So one, they could say it's fine. Another, they could throw it all out, say it's not constitutional. It wasn't put together in a way that allows us to just decide that part of it can be thrown out and part of it can stand. Or that's the third option. They could say these parts aren't constitutional. The likely thing they would say there would be that you can't make people buy a commercial product. You can't mandate that people have to buy health care, but everything else is okay. Whatever they do, we need to repeal it. Whatever is left that the court doesn't strike down, whether that's part of it or all of it, we need to repeal it and replace it with something that works, and to do it in bite-sized pieces that Missourians and the American people generally can understand. No 2,600-page bill.
That no one read.
To replace this.
If it stands, the states need to be ready, though, right? And is the state of Missouri ready? Has the state of Missouri done its homework to be ready for this? Because, what is it, 2014?
Oh, John, I don't know. I don't know that any state can afford it if it stands. The additional people that it puts on Medicaid, it won't let you take anybody else off Medicaid that you were covering that defined group as of May of 2010 or March of 2010. The average state is now spending 24% of its money on Medicaid. Next year, that's this year, next year it'll be 29%. It goes up even higher under the president's health care bill. There will be no money left for what used to be the number one spending priority, which was education and then transportation and then criminal justice. Those are all now becoming 2, 3, and 4 as priorities instead of number 1. So I don't know that the states can stand this if it continues to be the law. But sometime in the next week or so, we're going to know about that. So if they're not ready today, they'll be no more challenged a week from now than they are now.
Okay,
and
Senator.
They'll know what the court.
Senator Roy
Gotta
Blunt,
go.
thank you, sir, for being our guest this morning and taking time out of your busy day. We've enjoyed it. Thank you very much and look forward to
Great
speaking
be
to you
with
again.
I'm pleased to get to talk to all three of you.
Good
Bye-bye.
to talk to you.
Have a great day and thank you very much.